Maudie Alcindor from Montclair, New Jersey.
Okay, Maddie. What is your relationship? What is your current relationship with your father?
A caretaker. I'm his primary caretaker since about 2018. Probably most of my life, but from 2018 officially, his primary caretaker, power of attorney, healthcare surrogate.
What was his? Have you guys always had a? How can you describe his relationship? Your relationship with him?
Oh, I was definitely a daddy's girl. I was always clinging to him as a small child. Always, I was always so in love with my father. He was the most handsomest man I had ever seen as a small child. Him and my mom broke up when I was 9 going on 10, and then they got remarried when I was 17. So I spent a good 8 years just missing him, crying a lot, hoping for him to come home. And when it was time for him to come home, I was kind of like over it by then. But we always had a good relationship for the most part. He was always encouraging me to spread my wings and do my thing. I can't really say we had a bad relationship. Um,
So, when exactly did you decide that you were going to become a caretaker? Were you the only option, or?
So, my dad again had he's kind of a wanderer. So even though him and my mom were back together, I think that was 1989. He was still like in and out of the house in Rome, and just not really staying home, which was the problem in for the first time they got married. But around 2011, I think my dad decided he was up and going to leave their home in Massachusetts and move to Florida, unbeknownst to my mother. And so once he did that, my mom had, after 50 years, finally said enough. And he was staying with some family members, and he seemed to have been doing well the first years. But I was visiting around 2017 and noticed weight loss. He was staying with a cousin, but was supposed to be kind of managing his own affairs. And he just didn't look good to me. And so at that point, I just said, we have to make plans. I had already sat down with him the year before to talk about, at that point he was over 75, and we had talked about what are your what would you like to happen long term if you become unable to speak for yourself or to take care of yourself. So we had forms in place, but I didn't know it was going to go downhill so quickly. So when I came in 2018, it was just not a good situation in the house that he was in. And again, he had lost a massive amount of weight. He was unable to really do a lot of things for himself, though in his mind he thought he could do a lot of things for himself. So there was a lot of arguing and things in place. And at that point, he decided that he was going to move to Haiti, which was where we're from. And then decided once he was in Haiti, it still was the lack of proper care or consistent care. And since he had given up where he was living at our cousin's house, um, I had a spare room with an ensuite bathroom. So I told him he was welcome to come stay with me. And the plan of it before was that he would stay the summer months with me here so he could be able to go around and see family around the states, and then in the winter he would go to Haiti and be somewhere warm, or we could arrange for him to go to Florida during the winter months. But very quickly I started seeing signs of him not being himself.
What are some of those signs that you noticed that wasn't like him?
So my dad, again, we were as thick as thieves and very loving towards each other. And he was just having outbursts for things that normally he wouldn't have an outburst for. A lot of name calling, which I had never experienced with him. Him getting in arguments with people, again, over the smallest infraction, or a lot of times it was him being confused about something that someone said, or mishearing or misplacing things, and not being able to understand that it was his mistake. I mean, he's kind of a narcissist on top of that. So, him owning up to that it was his mistake was already a problem. But then he was just, fly off the handle. And at first it was like every once in a while. And then by 2019, it was like literally like, every couple of weeks. And then by the end of 2019, going into 2020, it was like a regular occasion where we were really on pins and needles about his behavior, because he was just really volatile and having like really bad judgment on just like simple things. And I was afraid that he was going to like burn my house down at one point.
So, what can you describe that made him like up and leave? And was it January or February 2020?
2021, you mean last year?
Yeah, 2021.
So we don't know. So my father was doing things like he was saying he saw COVID in the air, and he would see COVID on clothing and things like that. And he was already, because of his weight loss and being old, he was always cold. So on top of his heat being on like 75 in his room, he also wanted a space heater. And he was like leaning the space heater on his clothes, his bedding, sticking the space heater underneath his bedding. And when I questioned him on it, which was the last big, one of the last big fights we had, was I said, Dad, that's a fire hazard. You can't do that. He got enraged and was basically, saying that he was going to call the police on me, saying that he was going to tell people that I was abusing him. And so that was causing confusion for me, because I couldn't tell at first if his behavior was just him acting out because he was so used to having his own way, or if something actually cognitive was happening to him. So for a good like year and a half, I was like, is my dad really an asshole, or is he really like, or is there something cognitive happening? Because it was a lot of like things that he would say to me that was like, oh, he's trying to hurt my feelings. It wasn't like, oh, he's just saying random stuff. He was bringing up things from my childhood or from my relationship with my mother that, unless she was really trying to hurt my feelings, I was like, I couldn't really, it wasn't like forgetfulness or he's crying for no reason. It was like, oh, that's why, your mama used to, say that she was ugly, like things like that, that was like really hurtful. So by the beginning of last year, he was just like, whenever you would tell him, no, you can't see COVID in the air, it would be, oh, you want to call me crazy? When I go to the doctor, I'm going to tell them that you're abusing me. It was like, and it was like that. Like he was, oh, I can't, spray bleach all over my room. Oh, well, I'm gonna like, it was, but Daddy, and then I would try to, like reason with him and be like, well, Daddy, you know that you can't see COVID, right? Because he does have a medical background. He was a medic in the Army. He used to be a operating room tech. So I thought like, Daddy, like, that that's not how it works. And he was just like, yeah, like, I'm gonna call the cops on you. And he did. He one day I was sitting up here at my desk and I was working, and he called up and said he was going for a walk, which was a normal thing that he would do. And 30 minutes later, the cops were at my door because he went out and found the police and told them that we had been abusing him in the house. And when they asked him why, he said it was because he had asked my son for a glass of water, and my son offered him tap water.